Dear brothers and sisters, this is a homily for 6th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Year C. Happy are you who are poor, says Jesus in the Beatitudes. But how can a poor person be happy? In what sense does this happiness apply according to the scripture readings today? On this 6th Sunday of Ordinary Time, we are going to reflect on 1. Jesus descends from the mountain. 2. The contextual meaning of the Beatitudes. And finally, dependence on God as a lesson learned. First, when we read and meditate on the readings of today, we see a coherent message that runs through the 3 readings, and that is 2 categories of persons that determines 2 final destinations in the life to come. To begin with, in the first reading, Prophet Jeremiah talks of 2 persons in the society. The first one who puts his trust, confidence, and faith in God, whereas the other one who turns away from God by trusting in his wealth or strength. As a matter of fact, wealth and possessions can finish, but God is ever omnipresent. Do you put your trust and hope in God who gave you the wealth, or you trust in your wealth? Turning to the Gospel passage from St. Luke, as I mentioned in the introduction part of this Sunday homily, we find 3 important lessons or messages, namely 1. Jesus descends from the mountain. 2. The Beatitudes. And lastly, but not least, the dependence. Let us begin with Jesus descends from the mountain. The immediate context is that Jesus had finished praying and he came down from the mountain. This gesture mirrors what Moses did after having experienced the presence of God on the mountain, and of course, he descended to meet the people gathered at the foot of the mountain. In other words, after Jesus had experienced the presence of God, he came down to share and teach his disciples and the crowd that comprised of Jews and non-Jews at the foot of the mountain or the plain. On the other hand, Jesus teaching the Beatitudes from the plain would mean that he comes and descends up to the level where the crowd and his disciples are. He descends down so as to respond to their daily needs. Do we share the fruits and the experience of God with others in our daily life? Second, the Beatitudes. Beatitude is derived from a Latin word beatus, meaning happy, blessed, or fortunate. Indeed, this very word, happy, is used even in the Old Testament, more particularly in the book of Psalms and in the wisdom literature books. In fact, the responsorial psalm of today speaks of happy the man who has placed his trust in the Lord. Moreover, in the Gospel passage of today, according to St. Luke, we find 4 Beatitudes, whereas Matthew's Gospel reports 8. However, all, in essence, the synoptic present one single message from the Beatitudes. Why does Jesus teach these Beatitudes? To whom are they addressed to? In order to respond to the question why Jesus teaches these Beatitudes, let us put it into the context. Last Sunday, after the miraculous catch of fish, Simon, James, and John left everything and followed Christ. Again, Levi left everything in the tax office and followed Christ. This is what comes before today's episode. Therefore, in order to explain to them and strengthen their detachment from material things, Jesus fixes his eyes on the disciples and teaches them the beatitudes. Jesus speaks of happy are you who are poor. Of course, you in this sense refers to the disciples, the crowd, and lastly, us today. The four beatitudes show two categories of persons in the society, namely the poor, in this case the disciples who had left everything to follow Christ, whereas the rich among the crowd who cling to their wealth. Worth noting is that Christ does not condemn wealth in these beatitudes, but he condemns the trust and hope in wealth rather than trusting in God who gave that wealth. The last message from this gospel passage would be dependence. Dependence in the context is the action of relying on something. To be more specific, Christ talks of happy are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Normally, a poor person lacks. Therefore, there is a tendency to depend on something. In some way, we can say that a poor person is a happy person because he depends on God, who provides the basic needs. Christ is teaching and calling on us today to have dependence on God's providence. In fact, the disciples had left everything to follow him, and therefore it is important to depend on him, trust and have faith in him. Today, even if you are rich or poor, do you have this dependence on God? The one who depends on God is like a tree planted near a flowing stream, and it will never dry up. Happy the poor who depends on God because he knows that he is the source of everything. Let us use our possessions to enjoy God and not to enjoy our possessions at the expense of neglecting God, the source of all wealth. As Christians, we are invited today to share our wealth justly, reasonably, and responsibly with the less fortunate. To conclude, on this 6th Sunday of Ordinary Time Year C, we are reminded to be happy, that is, to root our whole life in God, the source of happiness. True happiness is obtained by depending on God, trusting in God, and having faith in God. May God help us to find true happiness in our life so as at the end we may inherit the kingdom of God and eternal life. Amen. Have a blessed Sunday.